What's up, fellas? It's Lerald. So there's some support gem data that's been mined or leaked or what have you. It's available on PoE 2DB right now. GGG has also released their official loot filter information dump here. And between these two resources, we've kinda sorta got our first look at support gems in the coming league. And what do you know, there are some Incidental Warrior buffs and some nerfs as well. Devastate support is being removed. So I want to go through all of this and talk about how it may or may not be affecting my plans for the coming league. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Join our Discord as well. We're getting pretty close to 1,000 members. Really would like to hit that. It's a big milestone for us. Alright, so let's talk about the very first thing here, and that would be the removal of Devastate support. The expanded list of removed support gems was found when they dropped this, the giant list of item filter information. There's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't really make any sense without, context or a lot of experience, right? But then there are a lot of support gems that are being added, a lot of support gems that are changing names. Also, notably, a lot of new omens. So I do think that Ritual is going to rock in the next league. If you like making currency, I think Ritual is going to be a place to do it. Tons of renamed things, lots and lots of stuff here, but one that really stood out is Devastate. It seems like it's just going away, and there's going to be no analog for it, and that's unfortunate because Devastate is a way for builds that don't exclusively do physical damage or don't have a lot of armor breakdown built into them to turn heavy stunning into directly breaking armor. Then this has some other interactions where you could hook together some sort of skill that heavy stuns by default, or whatever. Heavy stuns very easily, like Bone Shatter. You could combine that with armor explosion support and Devastate, so they would heavy stun, break the armor, and then also cause an explosion. That was a combo that I kind of liked. It does seem like that is maybe somewhat dead, unless you're playing a Warbringer. That's why I pulled up Pob here. I think that as it currently stands, if you are wanting to play a Fire Warrior and you want to take advantage of, I think I have it pulled up right here, the Molten One's Gift, this new keystone or notable passive rather that they're creating that allows fully broken armor to apply to fire damage. And then I think it basically changes fully broken armor from 20% damage to 23% damage. Not a huge deal. It's going to be a lot easier to fully break armor if you're playing a Warbringer and you're using Anvil's Weight. Unless you're doing some sort of thing where you do a lot of physical damage and then you finish with fire damage, that could maybe work if you're using physical damage as kind of your builder's setup skills and then comboing into fire damage skills. But that seems like a lot harder to build into. I think a more simple build where you're just doing walking around volcanic fissuring and using totems to trigger the volcanic fissures. Anvil's Weight's going to work really well. And that means Warbringer's going to be the move rather than Titan. So I'm still not totally certain as to which Ascendancy I'm going to go with. I felt like it was Titan for sure. Now I'm having some questions. I think I'll probably start Titan and then just be prepared to swap over to Warbringer if need be. I think either of them can work really well, but obviously this does tend a little bit more toward Warbringer because it's so easy to build armor break up if you're playing a Warbringer, and it now is not if you are not. So here we have the PoE 2 DB list of support gems. These are all translated from Chinese, so I just had a couple of them that I thought were fun. Dew Mist Barrier, that's just a fun name. This is Lightning Thorns. I do want to talk about Thorns here in a second. But then also Spirit Box Preservation just caught my eye right below it. It supports skills that consume Spirit Boxes, giving them a chance to not destroy the Spirit Box when producing an effect. I have no idea what this means. I just thought the name was fantastic. I assume it's translated into something strange, and it'll make sense once we know. I have no idea what this is, though. Maybe some sort of remnants or something, who knows. So I wanted to start with Thorns, because Thorns looks like it is getting a lot more support. Obviously, we started with the Dew Mist Barrier there with the Lightning Thorns based off your mana. I don't think that's going to be super useful for, some sort of Titan Thorns build, but as you can see, you can get, we've got this new one, gives you up to 70% increased Thorns, and this seems to be a buff that you attach to, auras. You get, a lot of extra Thorn damage on an aura, so that's interesting. Then there is this new counterattack skill. I think you have to be hit by Thorns for this to work, but then it causes your melee attacks to deal Thorns directly, so that's a new method for applying Thorns. I've seen some people talking about wanting to play with Thorns recently. This one also, Thorn Barbs, several different Thorn support gems that seem to apply to this kind of a Thornsy playstyle. So I don't think that's what I'm going to be starting out with or anything, but I have seen people using Thorns in the campaign and like obliterating bosses with Thorns damage. So that could be something you could try and play around with. I think there's real potential, especially with this this kind of thing, the thorny ground, where now you can use slams to create thorn patches on the ground, and then the thorns deal thorns damage. Yeah, I think that's a really cool concept. So another thing I really wanted to talk about, kind of even more than thorns, since this is more directly oriented with the build that I'm like looking to play, is slam related stuff. So Aftershock previously was just a straight up 25%. This was the only version of this gem that existed, I believe, in 0.2. 25% chance to get an Aftershock, which is 100% more damage after like a short delay out of your slams, and now that goes up to 35% as a level 2 Aftershock. So that's just like 10% more damage for slam builds, which is pretty good. But then also Ancestral Call is getting a pretty significant buff. So I think this is a bit of a translation error here. Ancestral Blessings slams deal 30% increased damage. Pretty sure it's still more. And then 25% increased area of effect is correct. But then there is another version somewhere in here. Okay, Rugged Ground. I think this is supposed to be like Jagged Ground. Again, I think that's just like a translation issue. But then Fist of War support, War Fist. Supports your slam skills, giving you the standard effect at level 1 of an ancestrally boosted slam, which is that 30% more damage, 25% increased area of effect every 6 seconds. But now there's a second rank that makes it every 4 seconds, and a third rank that is only once every 14 seconds, but it has double the effect. So 60% more damage, 50% increased area of effect. That is absolutely insane for something like Hammer of the Gods, some sort of very, very large finishing spell. Finishing slam, I suppose, not a spell at all, but a finishing slam. I think there is like really strong potential here, especially with this. Now this is sort of a little bit of a nerf to Ancestral Empowerment. The fact that they didn't boost this passive for Titan, with this now being every other slam, and then, the built-in support gem being every 4 seconds instead of every 6. Kind of a bit of a nerf to the Ascendancy, but it does look like with a lot of these support gems where people were worried maybe the existing rank 1, the only version of the support gem that existed, that would like be nerfed to allow them to then add in new ones. It looks like they've just used this as a way to buff underperforming archetypes, which was kind of what I was gambling on the whole time. And then there's Yearning, and this has amazing synergy. This is actually not new. I've seen some people talk about this as though it's new. It's actually Syzygy, this bonus right here, the difficult to pronounce. I mean, it's not really, it's just Syzygy, but confusing word. Support gem, but it has been reworded a bit. So it supported slam skills you use yourself. And I think, maybe we're just getting a translation difference here, but I think they might have changed something here. If it all worked as intended, this would not work from totems in the past. Don't know if that's true. I never tested it, and I don't plan to now, but now it supports your slam skills full stop, so you could use this as a totem bonus. And what it does is if your target is ignited and fully armor broken, then it will heavy stun them and cause them to be permanently intimidated. Intimidate is 10% less damage dealt, 10% more damage taken. I guess increased and reduced, but whatever. So very, very, very strong debuff to be able to put onto anybody, and it makes it so that that playstyle of fully armor breaking and igniting enemies is essentially 10% stronger in both directions. 10% tankier, 10% extra damage. So this is another thing that's really, really in favor of playing Warbringer and really just going for Anvil's Weight like right off the bat if you're going to play Warbringer. I think there's also like a lot of value for Warcries as well. In this support gem tab here, I think this might have been like all that I really wanted to talk about with the thorns, or the slams rather. Yeah, that Thorny Ground is next. Yeah, so looking like some pretty good buffs to slams, just very basic buffs, just like 10% more damage here, 10% more damage there, 30% more damage on your big finisher slam. And Ancestral Cry, which is the new awesome fiery war cry, has all of these insane trigger conditions on it in the third edict content reveal. It had Warcry buff, AoE, melee, slam, projectile, trigger, fire, duration, nova, and conditional. absolutely insane. So you could put just like an absurd number of supports that will like work with it. And one of those was, of course, the War Fist of War, level 3. Now it would do 60% more damage and have 50% more area of effect, and that's like no downside because you're not going to be hitting Ancestral Cry every 14 seconds anyway. And especially if you're using endurance charges with it, you're going to get 50% increased duration per charge. So you'd go from 8 seconds to 20. So it's going to last longer than 14 seconds. It's going to take far longer than that to build up. So I have spent some time looking through all of this, and I can see that there is like more armor breaking potential than there was before. You can get 20% of physical damage breaking armor out of the Armor Shatter support gem. That's cool. You can also get like built-in endurance charge generation when you full break an enemy's armor, which is like really good if you're wanting to play. If you're wanting to play that Warbringer totem-y play style, totems and war cries and so on. Like that all works really well. But it does mean that using Devastate to break armor is just not going to be a thing anymore, so it does mean that armor breaking as a Titan may be difficult. It's something I'm going to play around with, but it does seem like that Fire Warrior playstyle is probably going to lean toward Warbringer pretty heavily. No, it's not all bad for Titan. It's not all bad at all. There's obviously all the slam stuff, but then there is also this bonus, Vanguard, that makes it so that shield skills, when you stun enemies, you gain guard based off of your strength, and so they're like... I pulled up the wiki page for shield skills. There's, Rage Shield, whatever, Magma Barrier. I don't really think that's going to do it, but like Shield Charge and Resonating Shield and I guess Shield Wall all can stun enemies. Resonating Shield looks like it's actually going to be quite good in the coming patch, and Shield Charge is just fantastic for stunning enemies. So you're going to be stunning enemies like quite a lot with this. And what this does is it gives you, at rank 1, it gives you 4 guard per 10 strength, and at rank 2 gives you 6 guard per 10 strength when you heavy stun enemies with those shield skills. So if you had like, let's say you are strength stacking, you got like 800 strength, 800 divided by 10 times 6 is like 480 guard. You might charge into a pack of like 10 enemies and stun them all, heavy stun them all. And so we're talking about, if it stacks, we're talking about like 5,000 guard off the top. Now, let's say you're not strength stacking, let's say you had, instead of 800 strength, you had like 400. So that would just cut that number in half, right? So if this stacks, this is a wild amount of shielding that you're going to be able to get just by like charging into a pack of enemies like a wrecking ball and stunning them all. Thousands of shielding. If it doesn't stack, it's still like 200, 300, 400 shielding, and you're going to be able to trigger this like fairly frequently just by shield charge again. So this looks really good defensively for any sort of shield charging or resonating shield playstyle. All right, then one of the last things I wanted to kind of talk about here was Ignite support gems. Now this section is like pretty weirdly formatted. I think this is called Everburning Flame, but it might just be called Ignite. I know, if I remember correctly, it was just called like Ignite in the earlier version of PoE 2. And it had this like 100% extra duration of your Ignite, but also 25% less chance to Ignite, right? And so it looks like the level 2 version of that just removes that reduced chance. And then the third one, I can't tell if it doesn't have extended duration at all, or if it is like both of these effects. This is pretty weirdly formatted, but it seems like 50% chance to refresh the duration on crits. Maybe that also comes with the extended base duration. That, I think it would be pretty useless if it didn't for a lot of builds. Maybe not for all builds, but for a lot. But if it has chance to refresh duration and also extended duration, then I think you're in pretty good shape. But yeah, like the potential for Ignite is decent. There's not nearly as many like Ignite support gems as I might have expected for just like regular Ignite. There's some stuff like Frostfire, where you can freeze and ignite enemies, and that's kind of cool, but I don't really think that would work with anything warrior related. But just the basic increased duration without the downside of losing Ignite chance is real good for warriors. There was one final thing I wanted to talk about before I kind of wrap up here, and that is the fissure support gems. As it looks like there's only 2, but I'm surprised there are even any. And that would be the new Splitting Fissure support, which supports melee attacks to create fissures in the ground, like Volcanic Fissure, and the new Hammer Throw as well when you blow that up. Both skills I was kind of looking forward to playing with. So this one makes it so that when you create fissures, you create a couple of extra ones. They have less AoE and less damage, but you get even more clear. sounds pretty dank. And then the second skill, or second support gem here rather, is Upheaval. It will make your fissure skills create an additional fissure. The attack speed is lower and you deal less damage. This seems worse. This just seems strictly worse than the splitting fissure support. But, you know, maybe there's some reason to use this depending on, I don't know, on whatever else is going on. Like maybe there's some sort of justification for using Upheaval, or maybe some sort of translation issue where splitting fissure doesn't actually exist. I don't know, but splitting fissure look very cool, being able to get extra fissures. You know, maybe these fissures from splitting fissure are tiny and they suck, and the ones from Upheaval are huge. I guess we'll find out once we get a chance to get in there and play around with it. But I thought the fact that there is some support for fissure skills is really, really cool, and especially the extra potential for clear out of getting like several extra branches out of all of your fissures sounds really great. All right, I think that's kind of it. Ultimately, I think I'm still going to be starting out with Titan, but there's a real possibility if I get in there and I start playing around with Fire Warrior skills and I love them, I might just go directly into Anvil's Weight, and then the goal would be like Renly's Training, Turtle Charm, and Warcrawler's Bellow. Not sure what order I would do all of those in. Probably go Warcrawler's Bellow and Anvil's Weight early on, be more like offensive throughout the campaign, and then spec into like block-related stuff for Warbringer later on. But Warbringer really does seem more like an ascendancy that kind of really becomes incredible once you're able to like avoid a Fallen, and that's not going to be day one, so I'm still thinking Titan off the bat, but I guess we're just going to have to see. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord so you can say hello to me in Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.